Bibliophiles of the internet, my name is Adriana and today I'm here to recommend you some middle grade books. Some of the most exciting things happening in publishing right now are happening in middle grade, so I think to dismiss that, ignore that, or undermine that simply because you are not necessarily the target demographic would be entirely remiss. Side note, I do have a much older video that's also a middle grade recommendations video and I will link that down below. Of course, the quality and lighting is very different, but if you can overlook that, there are some great books on that list that I still very much recommend, like The Phantom Tollbooth, Howl's Moving Castle, When You Reach Me, Fortunately the Milk, and so on. Also, I have way more middle grade books to recommend than will be mentioned in this video. I was typing up a list and it was just getting out of hand, so I had to find a cutoff point and save some for next time because there will inevitably be a next time. So with all of that said, let's get started. First up is George by Alex Gino. This is an incredible story because its own voices translit. It's about a kid named Melissa who just wants to play Charlotte in her school's upcoming production of Charlotte's Web, but her teacher won't let her have the part. This is a book that deserves all the love in the world because it's important, it's validating, it's extremely transpositive. It shows that kids are more than capable of engaging with their gender expression and their identity. They can and should be allowed to present themselves how they want, to express themselves how they want, to share the names that they go by and the pronouns that best honor them. And this story shows that there's more to being trans than just the transitioning process. It's about knowing who you are, being who you are, finding people who make you feel safe, and the sheer beauty of expressing yourself in a way that feels true and honest. Then there is The School for Good and Evil by Soman Chainani. This is one of my all-time favorite trilogies because it does such a great job of flipping the script when it comes to fairy tale tropes, gender roles, and traditional ideas of what it means to be a hero and what it means to be a villain. All three books really question what kind of people are predisposed to each role, who is expected to be or allowed to be these things, and could there possibly be more to them? I'm gonna stop myself there because I could gush about these characters all day long. Suffice to say, if you have not yet started this trilogy, you should really fix that. Then we have The Thing About Jellyfish by Allie Benjamin. This is a beautifully written story that really explores grief and loss because the main character, Susie, has just lost her best friend who drowned, and she becomes obsessed with the idea that her friend was stung by this rare breed of jellyfish. This book really struck me because Susie challenges the boundaries of grief. She refuses to accept that meaningless platitude of sometimes things just happen. That's not good enough for her. That's not something she can take comfort in or something that will help her move on. It's not until she starts questioning that and really throwing herself into her research, almost with desperation, that she can allow herself to properly grieve and start to accept that her friend is gone. This is a complex and honest story and one of the best I've ever read. Then there's Rules for Stealing Stars by Corey Ann Haydu. This is magical realism. It's a wonderful, raw story about a girl named Silly whose mother is depressed, possibly bipolar, and also an alcoholic. In the midst of everything, Silly and her sisters discover that their closets are magical portals that can transport them far away from their pain. What's so powerful about this story is that it documents the sisters' collective experience with magic, and you get to see how that progresses from elation and wonder to desperation to fear, and that is paralleled against the mother's tendency to self-medicate. But it also shows that happiness doesn't come easy or even often, and that's why you need people around you to help fill in the gaps, and that's why it's important to recognize those moments of everyday magic when they do come around. Next, I want to talk about Goodbye Stranger by Rebecca Stead. What's great about this book is that it shows young characters who are real and full and complex as they transition away from childhood and learn to start confronting toxic friendships or friendships that are no longer fulfilling to them. The characters are learning that when it comes to childhood friends, either they grow with you or they don't. Either they're good for you or they aren't. The story does a great job of exploring how avoiding conflict isn't what makes you stronger. In fact, that's unhealthy because the best kind of relationships are the kind where you can be honest with each other and tell the other person how their actions make you feel. Change is not only healthy, it's necessary. What's more, this story really celebrates all kinds of relationships, from familial to romantic to platonic, and that is exactly what we need in books. Next, I have Crenshaw by Katherine Applegate. This is a novel that sheds light on poverty and how monetary stability or instability affects the entire family unit. The main character, Jackson, used to live with his parents out of their car, and during that time he started seeing this imaginary cat named Crenshaw. Now, even though their situation has changed, he started to see Crenshaw again. This story shows that everything in life is hard-won and nothing is a guarantee. Just because you fight to gain stability doesn't mean you get to keep it. And like I said, the story explores how the family dynamic is changed when the parents, who are supposed to be the anchors, are struggling to find their way just as much as anyone else. Parents are not infallible, the notion of home is not infallible, and that's a lot to internalize, and that's why Jackson seeks something in his life that he can control, and that's where Crenshaw comes in. Poverty is a largely ignored issue, and it shouldn't be. It tends to be invisible or hidden, and because of that, I love that this book really does that discussion justice. And finally, I have The Real Boy by Anne Ursu. High fantasy middle grade stories are my jam, but they mean something more when they're centered around a person of color, and a person of color with autism at that. Oscar is the shop boy for a powerful magician, and he's never been allowed the chance to work out front because he has a hard time reading social cues and navigating his way through everyday interactions, and because of that he thinks of his brain as broken. But when the children of a nearby city start falling ill, it's up to Oscar to figure out what's gone wrong and how he can fix it. Oscar may process things differently, but he's used to keeping his world so small that he's also able to notice things and remember details and patterns that another person might easily overlook, and ultimately he's able to be a hero just as much as anyone else. As it says in the title, this book is real, it's authentic. You really get to sit with Oscar's thoughts, feelings, and perspective. You get to know the ins and outs of his mind so well, and the way this book is written is masterful. It's a very necessary story. So those were all the books I wanted to mention today, and like I said, I have a ton more middle grade books I would love to recommend in a future video, and of course if you have any recommendations for me, please feel free to leave them in the comments down below. But that is everything I had for this recommendations video today. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I will catch you on the flip side of the page.